Hello everyone, welcome to IMPRINT IS. And in the IMPRINT Explain series today, we're going to talk about how global credit agencies work, right? First of all, who are the global, credit rating agencies? So the top three are obviously Fitch, Moody's, and Standard and Poor, right? So why they have been in news? Let's look into that. So the reason is that recently, this happened on November of 8th this month, that Moody degraded its outlook on India, right, from stable to negative. And when was it done to stable? It was done in November of 17, that is 16 November 2017, where India was given the BAA2, right, from the BAA3, right? And after that, what happened was that India actually had a very, very good growth rate for the next 2 years. So it has been seen as if that this would also lead to some kind of reduction in our growth rate, right? And Moody, in its latest news in November 14th, has talked about the fact that the growth rate would now be less than, let's say, 5.6% or 5.8% approximately. Now, what are the reasons for this? Now, let's think about that. So, this is this editorial, right? What are these views? What is Moody really thinking about? So, the idea is that there's a growth slowdown. And obviously, that has a direct impact on physical deficit and borrowings. Now, credit rating agencies, they really care about two things, right? They care about the physical deficit, and they care about the current account deficit, right? And in some, they you basically use a combination of foreign exchange reserves, right, and other factors are also considered, right? But mainly they look at these two factors to give us a credit rating. Now, because the physical deficit is been seen that we have a target of 3.3 and we'll not be able to really make it. And Moody is saying that typically we would reach 3.7 this year. So this is going to be a problem. And why do you think so? They talk about the fact that the government last month gave a corporate tax concession of 1.45 lakhs. And despite the largesse from the RBI, that is 1.76 lakh crore dividend, this might not work out, right? And they also have realized that the second quarter's GDP number, which is less than 5%, they're saying that maybe we would actually grow for not more than 5 or maybe 5.5, 5. And obviously, the issues are obviously about GST as well, right? GST target also has not been achieved even in the month of October, right? So that's another problem. But let's now head back and let's talk about what are credit rating agencies. So credit rating agencies is a company that assigns credit ratings, which rates a debtor ability to pay back debt by making timely principal and interest payments. And obviously, they look at the credit worthiness of the debt obligations of the issuers of debt instruments, so on. What does that mean? It means, let's say, if I'm SBI or I'm ONGC and I want to raise capital, right, abroad, right, some kind of bond. So the rating of obviously ONGC might be better than even India, and which is the case. But still, they will only get Baa2 rated bonds. They will basically do that. Okay, right? So that's one problem that obviously if you downgrade a rating. So what does this Baa2 mean? So what it means is, let's say the risk-free rate is, let's say, 2%. And above that, there is a default risk, which basically seen to be this, depending upon the rating you get. So let's say for BEA2, it's 4.5%. So I will have to pay 6.5% interest on my bond. On the other hand, let's say if I'm a US-based company, let's say I'm a AAA rated company, I will only pay the risk-free rate of it. And that's what J&J pays, that's Johnson & Johnson, right? Now, debt instruments are rated, by CRAs, and they basically can be government bonds, corporate bonds, commercial deposits, right, municipal bonds, preferred stock, collateral securities, mortgage-backed securities, and so on. Basically, the ratings are published by credit rating agencies. Basically, are used by investment professionals and to assess the likelihood of the debt being repaid. And the problem with that, the credit rating agencies is that it is a highly concentrated agencies. Moody and S&P themselves alone have a 80% market, which is very, very right. On the other hand, Fitch has something like 15%. That's another thing. Which is what do these rating means, right? So basically, what it means is a better rating helps funds at a cheaper rate. That's the basic idea, right? In simple terms, if you want to understand. Obviously, they look into economic management by governments. They analyze official. They basically what they do is that they basically analyze the economic management by the sovereign government. So what does that mean? Basically, they look at your physical deficit. They look at your revenue deficit. They look at your primary deficit. they look at a foreign exchange rate, they look at your exchange rate volatility, and so on. And then they basically, after analyzing this data and other data, they interact with government officials, business leaders, they finally come up to a rating. Now, historically, because Indian government has not been really, hasn't not really taken debt from various countries. So obviously, there has been a lot of times, people have been said that these agencies really don't know much, and we'll talk about that. There is an article on that in Indian Express. We'll go into that. What are the impact on Indian firms? So there are two ways of thinking, looking at this impact. One is, uh, you know, uh, what will happen is that certain industries, so companies belonging to the infrastructure, oil and gas, and IT sector. So HPCL, Petronet, LNG, GAIL, Adani, ONGC, TCS, Adani Green, BPCL, NTPC, Infosys. They all, the share market really, typically fell down, right? And the ratings were revised for NTPC by Moody, by NHPC, GAIL, etc. Right? So that's another thing. So what does it do is that they basically kind of make the interest payments a little harder, right? Or raising of funds a little more expensive. And so that is the basic concern. The idea is that, if we next time we raise money abroad, we might have to pay a higher price, right? And also what happens is, if let's say I am an institutional investor, let's say like the Abu Dhabi Group, right? So sovereign wealth fund, or a pension fund, like, or an endowment fund of overseas universities such as Harvard. So when there is a lowering of rating, what happens? I reject my investment. So what will happen is that I will sell a bit, right? And that is what exactly has happened. So I've sold these companies, right? And there's a fall in share market. So big endowment funds, because of the negative outlook given, right? I have rejected it, or basically it's algorithmic. So they basically, as soon as the rating goes down, automatically they sell a certain amount of shares to reject their exposure to such funds. Now, the another problem, obviously, we talked about the fact that the concern is after Moody's upgrade 2 years ago, when what happened was the economy grew 2% faster than it grows now. So if they have actually lowered our rating, or they have actually shown a negative outlook, it tells you that we're going to have a problem for the next few years, right? And that's going to be a problem. And our idea that we want to become a $5 trillion economy, or we want to go $10 trillion economy, that's not going to really go any faster, because we actually require a growth rate of about 8%. Does it really matter? Now the question is, does it really matter, except for, let's say, our share market, right? So the reality is that it depends on our government, right? India obviously hasn't been borrowing outside, right? It has not issued a bond or raised money directly in the land, right? The downgrade has a very limited impact. The impact is basically felt by the private firms as Adani or TCS or Infosys, or by state-owned companies like the oil, petro, net, LNG, and other ONGs, etc. In this year's budget, we did think that we'll go for a sovereign bond, but obviously we got criticism from the RBI, right, and various other parts. Even the RSS criticized. So the Indian policymakers with long memories never really want to borrow from the international market directly, and they have said that maybe this is the reason that there's a bias towards for these treasuries. What has been our experience, right? Let's think about that. So we had a balance of payment crisis historically in 1991. So as soon as that happened, right, they downgraded our sovereign rating, right, during that time. In 1998, we had the Pokhran issue, right? We carried nuclear strikes. So again, sanctions happened. Again, our ability to raise abroad was shown that it was not that great. Now, but what happened was the government and RBI decided to ignore the agencies and raise billions of dollars in foreign exchange by bonds issued by SBI in two tranches. The idea was that because we don't have borrowings, we don't have external exposure. The idea is that most people tend to believe that we will return the money, right? But what has happened is that since till at least 2004-5, we never really actually talked to them, right? Now the question is the credibility. Now for this credibility, let's talk about the art, how India's now in 2013. Just one thing, he says that credit rating agencies had got it all wrong, pointing out to the case of Iceland, where the highest rating of AAA was given by S&P, but whose economy has collapsed. Then he said India's investment rating had fared much better than the Asian countries. So obviously they pretend to know everything, but they really don't know much. That is what just one thing talked about 30. Arun Jaitley, on the other hand, he says that we had low oil prices. This is in 16 when we got the upgrade, right? Right. He said that Moody has rightly recognized the structural reforms taken as GST, a sound monetary policy, and so on, and recapitalization of state-owned banks. And there was a positive outlook. Right. So what have we been thinking about? Indian government obviously talks about the fact, how the Indian government has responded to the change. So at this time, the government has responded to the change in outlook by saying that India's fundamentals are robust. We have very strong foreign exchange reserves, and CPI, is really really low, right? And we have low bond yields. So therefore, if you think about these three things, that our fundamentals are fine, inflation is low, we have low bond yields, we don't really believe what Moody is saying. It has indicated that we don't agree. Whether financial markets share a similar assessment will be seen over the next few weeks. So after the rejigging, right, by the various pension funds, endowments, and sovereign wealth funds, I think they're saying that in a week or so we'll get the real reaction. So the sudden selling will be there, but the algorithmic trading, after that it will not matter. After the few days, people will again buy, and the Sensex will be back. So Indian policymakers have often grumbled about the moody nature of credit rating agencies and their seemingly different standards, right? And it says that, but it's useful to remember that despite sovereign ratings being what they have been for a long of time, India has been actually having a plenty of portfolio. So FI, FDI has been an all-time high. So does it really matter what these agencies are saying? Do people really believe them? That's something up for grabs, I would say. Thank you for listening to us. Subscribe, like our channel, join our Telegram group for the PDF of this video, right? These slides. Thank you so much for listening. Right.